Welcome to Boxing During Dinner, episode 40. And as you know by now, David's up in Rochester. I'm here in Miami, but it's not the same. I wish he was here. I really wish he was here.
I'm here.
Oh my God, he's here!
Yeah, I'm here.
Holy crap!
Episode 40. It was
David is back.
Yeah.
Or this is really good technology that Alex has developed, and David's not really here. He's in Rochester.
Exactly. I'm like a prism or something like that. It's just an image.
But David will be here for the next 3 weeks before he goes back to cold weather, and then eventually he'll move back down to Miami because
it's all part of the plan.
Cold snow and all that stuff is no way to live.
No, I agree.
And lack of really, really hot chicks.
Rochester's not all that bad.
But Miami's like A+.
Yeah,
plus.
Yeah, that we'll agree with.
No, nothing compares to Miami. Some will try, but no dice. Well, we have a lot to talk about. It's like weeks and weeks of conversation that we've just had
just in the past week.
In editing, I think.
Yeah.
But Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fought this past week. Oh, and by the way, we don't have dinner tonight. We're preparing for a special Valentine's edition next week. Candlelight dinner edition of Boxing During Dinner.
Yep.
But Julio Cesar Chavez, David, he beats Marco Antonio Rubio, not the senator again. He gains 22 pounds from weigh-in to fight night. And then we find out he got arrested for DUI a couple of weeks prior. What did you think of Chavez's performance and the arrest?
I think Chavez again strikes me as somebody who he goes up and he goes down. He goes up and he goes down. I thought he looked brilliant against Peter Manfredo. I thought he showed a lot of progress. I think we're both of the mindset that Chavez is no longer a pushover. For a couple of reasons. He's trained under Freddie Roach. He's improved. Freddie Roach.
I like Freddie Roach.
Under Freddie Roach. He's improved quite a bit. He also has a serious physical advantage every time he steps in the ring. The guy weighs 181 pounds on fight night. You've got a legitimate middleweight fighting a cruiserweight on the night of the fight. I mean, that gives anybody an advantage. He's also 25. Rubio's 31. So Chavez has a lot of the physical advantages. With that said, he steps in with the steepest competition of his career up to this point. Did he answer some critics? Maybe, maybe not. But I think that sue me for saying this, but maybe outside of Sergio Martinez, he can compete with just about anybody at 160 pounds because of those advantages that we discussed.
No, I agree with you, and I thought Chavez looked great. He went to the body, he didn't show that jab, but he's never gonna be a boxer. He tried to throw the jab against Manfredo. And, it seemed to work, but then again, it's Peter Manfredo.
Right.
But he looked good against Marco Antonio Rubio. And like you said, I think outside of Sergio Martinez, he's able to compete with anybody at 160. I've always said if he had fought Cotto, I thought he would win because of his size advantage, or anybody at 154 for that matter. Now, the DUI concerns me. Not that not that all of us, we've gone out at some point in our lives.
Oh, yeah.
We've driven with more than 0.08 of the alcohol limit.
We're gonna say that here on.
We are sorry, but we all have.
He has.
So, but what concerns me isn't that. It's the term is what the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The tree being Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., who's a recovering alcoholic, and you're kind of afraid that the kid is gonna follow in dad's footsteps, not only as a boxer, but hitting the tequila bottle, and hopefully it's just a one-time thing. And he said he's gonna be in tip-top shape for Sergio Martinez, but we've heard that time and time again. And his dad used to drink before and after fights.
Yeah, well, he's not his father. I believe that this train will come crashing down at some point as soon as Top Rank chooses to manage him up. And I think he's only two fights more before he's up at 168 fighting tomato cans there.
So Freddie Roach and
Freddie Roach and yeah, well, all right, whatever. Let's move on to the undercard fight, which was Nonito Donaire versus Wilfredo Vazquez Jr. I want to talk about this fight a little bit because on our Facebook page, we've had a lot of people say that they think Chavez continues to be overrated. I disagree slightly, but a lot of people are disappointed with Nonito Donaire, and I'm not, because I think when he beat Fernando Montiel with that killer left hook, you could argue that even before that, he looked as sharp and disciplined as he had at any point, and he continues to move up in weight. He fights a difficult opponent in Wilfredo Vazquez with a broken hand and still, totally, one-sided defeat of him. I think Donaire maybe has regressed a little bit, working, more lately with Robert Garcia. And I wonder if that's a product of the training, or if it's just the fact that Nonito is
Or
not
maybe-
excited by his opponents, or if we're overstating, his performance with Montiel and expecting something like that out of him every time.
Or it could be the conditioning with Victor Conti. I mean, who knows? But the thing I took away from the fight, David, is that Wilfredo Vazquez Jr. showed that he belongs in the top echelon of the division. Because when he lost to Jorge Arce, I think it was more the younger fighter fighting the veteran, the crafty veteran who's going to push him around, got him tired, took him out in the later rounds. But Wilfredo Vazquez Jr. has a great jab, and you could tell in Donaire's face after the fight. He's a good fighter, quick hands, and the kid's learning. This kid had no amateur experience whatsoever. And I thought, I didn't think he deserved a split decision, but he did go the 12 full rounds. He showed he has balls, and he showed that he's past that Arce loss.
This is a very different fight if Wilfredo Vazquez throws combinations in this fight. That was one of the things that stuck out to me, is that jab was really trouble for Donaire.
It was a great jab.
Had his eye, pretty swollen up. But Vazquez never put his punches together. And as far as I'm concerned, you're not going anywhere against Donaire if you can't throw a combination, because he's not going to respect you. That he'll continue to take that jab just to continue to punish you, the way that he ultimately did. But Vazquez is still on the up and up.
Before we move from the 122 division, I want to say real quick, Guillermo Rigondeaux. A lot of people got on my ass because I talked about him and the Cuban trainers. But you know what? I'm a Cuban American. I want to see Cubans succeed. Right now, Guillermo Rigondeaux, aside from a couple of rounds, is a boring fighter.
Yeah.
And he's not going to get any less boring if he continues with amateur trainers. The Cuban trainers who are going to tell him to do the same thing over and over again. Freddie Roach, like I said in 2 shows.
Freddie Roach.
Freddie Roach told me, like I said 2 shows ago, but people choose to ignore, what they hear. Told me Guillermo Rigondeaux is one of the hardest hitters in boxing, yet he refuses to throw a lot of punches. He's sticking to that amateur game, and you can't blame him. It's 500 amateur fights. So all I'm saying, Guillermo Rigondeaux needs to throw punches. If he does, he will beat Nonito Donaire. He will beat everybody in the division. But until then, he's a boring fighter, and he's not going to get big fights.
I'll agree with that. For the sake of time, let's transition into something we alluded to in episode 39 and a half, which was the upcoming fight that was just signed, and then there was another one also. We'll start with Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Miguel Cotto on May 5th at the MGM Grand. Armando, what do you think of this fight at 154 pounds?
I think Miguel Cotto is gonna collect a lot of money. He could probably retire after this fight if he wants to. I think he takes way too much punishment, way too many shots. We saw when he fought Antonio Margarito, David. Antonio Margarito not at 100%. A slow-ass Antonio Margarito still got to Miguel Cotto, even though it was a one-sided fight. I just think Mayweather's gonna pepper him and he's going to win an easy decision or late round TKO. I just think Cotto's face is going to be a huge mess in that fight.
I'm going to let my bias get the best of me here because I'm a Cotto fan. I believe Floyd Mayweather will win this fight also. I do. With that said, at 154 pounds, Miguel Cotto is the biggest, strongest person that Floyd Mayweather has ever faced in his career. And at the age of 35, and with a boxer with a powerful jab, which, if you ask Roger Mayweather, what is the one thing that you need to beat Floyd Mayweather? It's a good jab. I think Cotto has the tools. He matches up better. Does this mean that he's the best fighter that's faced Floyd Mayweather? I don't think so. But I think he matches up better with Floyd than a lot of people are anticipating. And I think we might be in for a really surprisingly exciting fight. What happens when you get
I hope it's an exciting fight.
When you get 2 counterpunchers in the ring, someone's got to press the action. And I think that Cotto is a slick enough boxer, but a powerful enough puncher that this is an interesting fight. Again, I think Mayweather wins this fight convincingly, but there's going to be moments when there's some excitement.
And if he wins the fight, goes to jail, comes out of jail, fights Manny Pacquiao in November.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen? Do you think it's not going to happen because of what's been going on? Or do you think Tim Bradley has a shot at beating Manny Pacquiao?
That's my second reason. I put this on the record. I know you said Amir Khan was top 5 pound for pound. I'm going to say that Timothy Bradley will beat Manny Pacquiao on June 9th in Las Vegas.
Wow.
Mark it down. I don't want to go out on a limb as you just did. All right.
But I'm not too far from that opinion, David. And I'll tell you why. A lot of people, once the fight got signed, they're like, why is Manny Pacquiao fighting Tim Bradley? I thought of the whole bunch. Everybody considered. Cotto, Amir Khan, Lamont Peterson, Juan Manuel Marquez again. I thought the best fight would be a Pacquiao-Tim Bradley fight. Tim Bradley's quick. He's not afraid to get in there and trade shots. he has probably the biggest head in boxing.
Yeah.
That could block every single punch. No, but yeah, I have a big ass head too.
Yeah.
If that's what the zoom in was for. It's a fucking dome. But me and Tim Bradley have the biggest heads in the world.
Yeah.
And CeeLo.
It's CeeLo, yeah.
CeeLo.
Mine's not that big. Come on.
CeeLo's head was huge.
Yeah.
But Tim Bradley's gonna give Pacquiao fits, man. It's not an easy fight for Manny Pacquiao. If you guys think it's an easy fight, you're mistaken. You haven't seen Tim Bradley fight. And I don't think, because, De La Hoya was going on Twitter talking about, so Tim Bradley beat Casimir and he had trouble with him. And he didn't have trouble with Joel Casimir.
No,
Joel Casimir is an old, crafty veteran who makes fights difficult.
Yeah,
but
he was on the defensive the whole night.
Tim Bradley just walked through him. And Tim Bradley has looked good time and time again. I'm not sure if he'll beat Manny Pacquiao, but I'm pretty convinced it'll be a good fight.
I am too. I really think that this is a fight that he can win. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Pacquiao, but I will say that in his past couple of fights, he's shown signs of a fighter who's no longer the fighter he was. Timothy Bradley is one of the few fighters in boxing that I'm convinced can make in-fight adjustments to adapt to his opponent. He's relentless. He's arguably one of the strongest willed fighters in the entire sport. And you can guarantee that Timothy Bradley will be conditioned 100%. You've never seen him come in unprepared for a fight. And I think that if there's anyone who can take Pacquiao's throne, it's Timothy Bradley. He's younger. He's maybe in better conditioning at this point. There's an argument that might be able to be made for that because Pacquiao's cramped up in his last fights. I can't wait for that fight. I think it's going to be a total war, and I think it has a candidate for Fight of the Year written all over it.
And before we go, David, Ed Paredes, March 2nd on Friday Night Fights against Cosmo Rivera. A tough challenge for the young kid, but the Lions got hard, and he's a really good fighter. This might be the fight that takes him to that next level.
I think so. Ed Paredes has been beating increasingly better opposition. It seems as if he's finally reaching that point in his development that he can make this step up. If he's going to, Cosme Rivera is a great test for him. He's that rugged Mexican that everybody seems to have to go through in order to transition into that next echelon. He has a lightly regarded WBC belt, and I think this puts him, in the lower top 10 of a lot of sanctioning bodies for some bigger fights coming up.
And like I said earlier, the Cuban fans of boxing during dinner that got on me for my comments about Rigondeaux. Yuri Ortiz Gamboa, there's talk about him fighting Brandon Rios, and as a Cuban American who wants the Cubans to succeed, I don't think it's a good fight for Gamboa. He's fighting a guy that's way too big and way too powerful.
I don't have an opinion yet. I just hope it happens.
I hope it happens too. It'll be exciting.
Yeah.
And also before we go, David, Angelo Dundee, he passed away a week ago. I spoke briefly about it in the last Boxing During Dinner, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on his passing.
It's interesting. I've seen a lot of fighters on Facebook and Twitter start to come out with, their own stories, their own thoughts, and everybody's dealing with his passing on a very personal, emotional level. So beyond his training, he was a father figure to a lot of fighters in the sport, and he's definitely going to be missed. It's a new generation, and to lose somebody like him in our old generation is a reminder of what a great era that used to be in boxing. But there's new talent, new trainers, and but we do wish Angelo Dundee and his family peace.
And with that, Boxing During Dinner episode 40 wraps up. Angelo Dundee was always nice to me, and I'm sure he would have loved Boxing During Dinner.
Yeah.
Maybe he did see it before he went. Who knows? But next week, episode 41, the Valentine's edition, if you want to call it that. But David will be here in studio, and we'll have a special guest as well.
Oh yeah, we'll see you next week.